Hi, this is day 4 of week 1 of 52 weeks of vlogging, and we are still talking about guns. So the first time I just talked about why I wanted to open the conversation. Yesterday I talked about the 4 reasons people usually give for wanting to have guns. And today I want to actually do some comparisons between the United States and 3 other countries that have pretty different gun regulations from the regulations in the States. And also pretty different rates of crime and pretty different rates of gun crime. See if we can find some correlations and see something that makes sense. So today we're going to compare the United States with Canada, Switzerland, and Germany. But to do that, we need some charts. So I'm going to hand it over to my hand. Take it away, hand.
First, let's look at homicides, specifically intentional homicides per 100,000 people. In 2009, the UN did a survey, and their statistics are that the US had 5 intentional homicides per 100,000 people. Canada, 1.8, Germany even better with 0.8, and Switzerland the best of all with 0.7. But if we look at gun-related homicides, 66.9% of the US's total homicides were gun-related. That's a high percentage, more than half, which means that 3.3 for every 100,000 people were killed with a gun. In Canada, they had a better percentage, 32%, so 0.5 gun-related homicides per 100,000 people. Germany had 29.9% with 0.2, and Switzerland had no stats at all. But if we look at their 2004 percentage, 72.2%, the highest percentage of all, and multiply by their current number of 0.7, we get 0.5 gun-related homicides per year, the same as Canada. Now, if we look at crime in general per 100,000 people in the population, and look at the categories of rape, robbery, burglary, and assault, and then total them all up, we'll end up with total crimes per year, in addition to the homicides. The US had a total of 1,138.6 crimes in that year per 100,000 people. Canada, 878.4 crimes that year per 100,000 people, the much better figure. Germany, 1,154.9, a little higher than the US, and Switzerland, a little lower than the US, was 1,034.7. Notably, Canada had the most statistically significant number, being much lower than the US. Also, the categories of rape and assault are most worrisome since they cause the most bodily harm. Also note that because the US has such a high percentage of gun-related homicides compared to regular homicides, if we subtract all the gun-related homicides from total homicides for the US, Canada, and Germany, we end up with the 3 countries having numbers that are not that different from one another, which shows that the US's prevalence of guns might be significant. Now let's look at regulation. We'll start with Switzerland. They have 45.7 guns per 100 people in the population, which is a lot. Switzerland guarantees the right to possess a gun in their law. However, a number of guns are prohibited, and in order to get a license, you have to go through a lot. You have to have a good reason, you must have a license to purchase a firearm, you have to be 18 or older and complete background checks for mental health, criminal past, and domestic violence. You have to pass tests if you want to carry a hidden gun, and every 5 years you have to reapply. You only get 1 gun per license. There are no private sales, dealers have to be licensed and perform background checks at the point of sale, and there are laws regarding how to store. Now Germany. They have fewer guns than in Switzerland, 30.3 per 100 people, but only 8.73 of those are registered, which is a lot of unregistered guns floating around out there. They don't guarantee the right to own a gun by law, but a number of guns are prohibited. Licensing requirements are quite similar, except that you have to be 21 years of age instead of 18. Background checks don't include a domestic violence check, and there's no need to reapply for a license. You can also carry an unlimited amount of firearms. They allow private sales, there's no background check at the point of sale, and dealers must be licensed. There are laws regarding how you store your gun. It must be in a specially designed gun safe, and it must be transported in a case in the trunk of your car. If you want to carry a gun, you have to do it in plain view only and only with a permit. Canada has very tight gun regulations. 22.26 of their 23.8 guns per 100 people are registered, which is really high. They don't guarantee the right to possess firearms by law, and most firearms are prohibited, except for handguns with a barrel longer than 105 millimeters. You don't have to have a good reason to get a permit, but it's tough to get one. In addition to Switzerland's guidelines, you have to pass an addiction background check, have third-party references, and an interview with your spouse or next of kin is required. You reapply every 5 years, just like Switzerland. There's a mandatory waiting period of 28 days before you can make your first gun purchase, and they have to be stored in a specific way, unloaded, separate from ammo, and rendered inoperable, unless you're hunting or living near predatory. This is where America's 3.3 gun-related homicides per 100,000 people starts to become really clear, because we have 88.8 guns per 100 people, almost 4 times the amount that Canada has, and almost twice the amount that Switzerland has. We guarantee possession of gun by law, therefore there are not necessarily licensing requirements. Machine guns, sawn-off shotguns, rifles, and silencers are prohibited, but armor-piercing ammo and automatics can be obtained with proper registration, and semi-automatics and handguns can be obtained in some cases without any license at all. You have to be 18 to 21 to possess a firearm, depending on which firearm you want, but you can possess an unlimited number. If you purchase from a private person, which is allowed in some places, there are no background checks involved. Although if you purchase from a dealer, you do have to complete a background check, and dealers must be licensed. There are no federal guidelines in terms of how to store or care for guns and ammunition. And if you want to carry one around, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Sometimes it can be concealed, sometimes it has to be in plain view, and sometimes you need a permit. Sometimes you don't.
What all this illustrates is that although gun regulation may not be the only solution to America's gun crime problems, it is definitely a piece of it. And between the people who want to eliminate all the guns and the people who want to put a gun in the hands of every teacher in every classroom in America, there is a middle ground. I have kids, and they are the most beautiful, precious things to me in the world. They deserve to live in a world that is peaceful and safe, where the sanctity of human life is protected and preserved. Every child deserves that. And if we can put people on the moon and build a research lab that floats in space and invent the internet, then we can do this. We can find the middle ground. We have to. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.